This week we are talking about Camino footwear. I've done a couple of videos on footwear, but this week I'm going to go through the different shoes, different footwear that I've been trialing and the ones that I'm going to be using on my next Camino and why. That's coming right up. Okay, so I've done a couple of previous videos on footwear and there's a recent one on socks. And what I'd like to do this week is talk about different types of footwear that I've been trying out. And at the end of the video, I'll tell you which ones I'm using and why. But it's not really about particular brands or styles. What I really want you to get out of this video is some of the things to look for when you are picking footwear. I'm not going to recommend a particular one, and the reason for that is quite simple. We all have different footwear needs. All. If you ask your friends, you know, what's good footwear for a Camino, and they say, oh, look, I use these ones, they might not work for you. You know, I've got some here that are extremely popular, and I can't wear them. You know, they're not good for me. They're great for other people. So footwear is a very personal choice. So this video is going to help you pick the right footwear for you so that you're going to have a really great Camino. Okay, so I'm going to very quickly go through all of the different types that I've tried on Caminos and trials at home. But before I do that, I think what would be useful is just to talk about some of the characteristics of footwear to look for. So first of all, what types of footwear do people use? A lot of people walk in sandals. These are Teva sandals. I take them on every Camino. I take them for evening wear because they give my feet a break. So if whatever I've been walking in all day, I don't want to have to wear that in the evening as well. These give my feet a break, and plus they've got really good hiking soles. So if I had some sort of a foot problem and I couldn't wear my regular footwear, I can actually hike in these too. So they serve a double purpose, but a lot of people hike in them. A lot of people love lightweight trail runners. These are very popular, Ultras, but you know, people love New Balance. There's all different brands out there. This is not about particular brands. These are becoming kind of the shoe of choice now, I think, for a lot of people wearing a Camino, walking a Camino. These are a slightly heavier version from, who? I forget. La Sportiva. A lot of people are wearing various types of hockers. Again, a trail runner, they do ones lighter weight like these as well. Some people still wear boots. I've done all three of my last Caminos wearing these, and I love these Salomon boots. I don't love the new versions a lot. I have to confess, the design has changed a bit, but I love these. The only reason I'm not wearing them on my next Camino is they're a little bit heavier, obviously, than shoes. They are still the most comfortable hiking footwear I've got, but every time I see a physio or anyone like that, they say, Rob, you can't wear these anymore. They're too heavy on your feet, and that weight swinging on your feet is causing you knee damage, because I have a bit of arthritis in my knees and stuff like that. So they're comfortable. I mean, I tried them the other day. I think I walked a couple of Ks and then I could feel my knees already. So what I'll do now is I'll talk about the characteristics of footwear, and then I'll quickly go through these and I'll tell you which ones I'm going to be wearing on my next Camino and why. It's not a recommendation. It's just talking about how I've come up with that conclusion, so you can go through the same thought process when you're picking footwear. Okay, which ones shall we look at? Let's talk about these ones, because these are particularly popular. So this is an Ultra Lone Peak 5. So when you are going to look for footwear, there are a few decisions you need to make. Obviously, the basic style type. Are you going to walk in sandals? Not a lot of people do, but I know people who've walked, you know, a dozen or more Caminos in sandals. They love them, so it's a very personal choice. Are you going to walk in sandals? Are you going to walk in trail runners? And every sort of version of shoe I'll refer to as trail runners. I mean, these are probably more like hiking shoes. They're a bit heavier weight, but let's call them all trail runners. Or are you going to walk in boots? Do you feel like you want this extra security of the height and so on? I'm told by people who are experts in this that actually the boot, which comes up over the ankles and feels more secure, doesn't actually provide that much more security, tests have shown, apparently. I have to say that on a couple of occasions where I've sort of twisted my ankle a little bit, I felt that if I hadn't been wearing these boots, I might have damaged my ankle. So I quite like boots, but I'm not going to wear them anymore. So those are the sort of the key choices, but let's talk about the characteristics of the footwear. So when I'm going along to buy some new footwear for a Camino, what are the things that I look for? In terms of sizing, first of all, make sure you are wearing the socks that you plan to wear on your Camino. So I double sock. There's a video on socks, which we'll put up here. So I'm wearing my double socks. The other thing is, and look, you know, please don't take this as gospel, but it's generally accepted, I think, in Camino circles that you need to buy a size bigger than you would normally. I certainly do. Everyone I know practically does. I'm hesitating because maybe sort of half a size to a full size. It's hard to tell. Why do you want a bigger shoe? Because when you've been walking day after day, week after week, your feet swell and they also kind of flatten out. If you imagine you sort of end up with like duck's feet, your feet will flatten out and get broader. And so you need a little bit more space in the shoe, I've found. So all of my hiking wear is at least a size bigger than my normal footwear, day-to-day footwear. So for those two reasons, I double sock and I want space for the feet to expand. So think about size. Another thing that you might want to think about is, do you want Gore-Tex or not? There are very strong thoughts about this in the hiking community. These are Gore-Tex. I love them. People say, oh, it keeps the water out, but your feet will sweat and you'll get hot on the inside. Never had that problem. But I do take my footwear off during the day to air my feet. Maybe that helps. I can literally walk through water this deep on these things and my feet don't get wet. In pouring rain, they're great. These are actually Gore-Tex, one of the reasons I bought them. So do you want Gore-Tex or not? I would have to say most people don't bother with Gore-Tex, and for some reason Gore-Tex seems to be a bit unpopular. People don't think, or people think that it's going to make your feet sweaty. You know, maybe it does for some people. Just putting it out there. So Gore-Tex or not. We've talked about, you know, sandals, shoes, boots, Gore-Tex or not. We've talked about the size. One of the things that and I'm not a footwear technician, but one of the things you need to be aware of is the drop. So this is what they call a zero drop shoe, the Ultra Lone Peak. And what that means is the height of the heel and the forefoot, correct me down below if I'm not using the correct terms, are basically at the same height. So whereas on the Salomon, the heel of my foot is higher than the ball of my foot, and I think these are something like an 8mm drop. These are zero drop, so it's a bit like wearing flip-flops or thongs or whatever. Very popular at the moment. A couple of years ago, I wouldn't have been able to wear these because I have Achilles issues and it would be stretching my Achilles too much. But funnily enough, through COVID, working from home, I've been living in flip-flops. So I've been wearing zero drop footwear for 2 years, and now my feet are quite comfortable with zero drop. So think about that. Do you want your heel to be slightly higher than the forefoot? Something to think about. I was with my podiatrist yesterday, and I was getting some inserts made for my new footwear, and we talked about these. And he was of the view that, yeah, zero drop's okay, but he feels you need a little bit of a heel. Most people need a bit of a heel raise, shall we call it, for comfort. So these are zero drop. I think these are about an 8mm drop, and I think these are a 4 or 5mm drop. So think about that. What are some of the other things? Width fitting. This is a very narrow width fitting. So there's a couple of things to think about. One is a particular brand, do they make narrow or wide shoes? So the La Sportiva I found are just made quite narrow. The Hokas, on the other hand, this particular one, the Stinson, are made quite broad. And actually the Ultras are quite broad. The Salomons were kind of in the middle. So think about that. Do you need a wide fitting? This is the Stinson, the Hoka Stinson that I've been trialling. That doesn't come in a wide fitting, but the normal fitting is quite wide anyway. Yeah, I don't think any of these come in a wide fitting. Some of the other Hokas do. So we've talked about size, width fitting, Gore-Tex, heel drop. That's probably most of the key characteristics. If you have any questions on that or think of some other things that I've missed, do comment down below. Now we come to so that's kind of going to put you in the ballpark of what kind of shoes should I look at? What kind of footwear should I look at? I want this size, this width. I want a heel drop or not. I want Gore-Tex or not. Do you need wide or whatever? The most important thing, of course, is going to be comfort. And this is where you should be taking your time in the store, wearing the socks that you're going to wear on Camino, walk around a bit. When I go into the store to buy shoes, I always say to them, I'm going to be a while, I am going to buy something, but I've really got to check these out. There's a couple of great stores here in Sydney, Australia, where, bit of a plug for Paddy Palin, no commercial interest, but I think a couple of the other stores do it as well. But they have a little ramp, so you can walk up the ramp and see how it feels and come down the ramp, you know, and check whether your shoes are pushing towards the toe. So again, I'm not a footwear technician, but they'll advise you in the store, you know, have you got enough space in the front there. Particularly coming down descents on the Camino, some people do suffer from getting black toes, and sometimes the toes fall off. I had that happen once. It's fairly painless, I wouldn't worry about it. But that's because the shoe was a little bit short, and coming downhill all the time, you know, your toes are bumping into the end of the shoe. So again, because I'm going about a size bigger, I don't have that problem anymore. So do spend time in the store sort of checking out the fit. It's all about the fit. Now, why have I gone through quite a few different shoes? The reason is these all felt good in the store. So I don't want to sort of alarm you here, but be well prepared when you go to the store so you kind of know what you're after and the things to look for. And there's a couple of these that just don't work for me because I've tried them on training walks and so on, and I didn't realise in the store, but they don't quite work, and I'll explain why. Okay, this one, I'm going to take these in no particular order. I can't hike in sandals, so I'm not really going to talk about those. I've had no experience of hiking in them. They just don't give me enough arch support. I don't get enough support around the heel and so on. Great for walking around town in the evenings. So we're going to talk about these other ones. Again, not pushing a particular brand, but I'm just going to talk about the characteristics of some of these. Hokas have a reputation for being extremely well cushioned. These are the Stinsons. Not all Hokas are particularly well cushioned. Some people call these old people's shoes. My podiatrist said that as well. He says a lot of older people wearing these because the cushioning is great. All along here it's really thick, spongy cushioning, and anybody who tries these for the first time goes, oh wow, it's like walking on air. They're also very wide fitting, and you can see here, you know, that tread is very wide. They feel really stable. You know, look how wide that is at the heel. So these I like. The Ultras, I thought I was going to love them, and they feel great on. One problem I've had with them, it's not the zero drop, it's just the cushioning along the sole here is not enough for me. You know, I'm an older person, so I have less natural cushioning in my feet. That degrades with age. I also have a couple of foot problems, and it's just too hard. You know, if I walk on cobbles, I feel every single cobble through this. They could work really well for you. They obviously work for lots of people. So, you know, do try them out. For me personally, I just can't. The cushioning isn't enough, and it just really hurts the bottoms of my feet after a while. The Salomons I've mentioned. Personally, I can't wear a boot anymore because they're too heavy and they aggravate my arthritic knees. But you know, you might want to consider them. These Salomons I really love, but there are so many other popular brands out there. So lots to look at. So these, you know, I can't really fault them other than the weight. The La Sportiva were great in the store, but I just found on my training walks they were too narrow. And actually, if you look at them compared to, you know, the Hokas and probably even the Ultras, they're just so much narrower. And I think I was kind of persuaded to get them, or thought they would be a good buy because they're Gore-Tex, and I love Gore-Tex. So on my next Camino, I'm kind of not enamoured with the idea of not having Gore-Tex shoes, but hey, most people don't, so I'll live with it. So these just didn't work for me, unfortunately, just a little bit too narrow. Now, before I tell you what I will be walking in, I haven't got them. I was going to talk about inserts for a moment. So all of these shoes come with their own insole, and they're generally not much use, to be honest. You know, it's just a generic thin insole which comes with the shoe. It might work for some people. A lot of people like to put in their own insoles. There are sort of gel varieties and so on, and they rave about them. Mine I don't have with me. I've got some custom-made orthotics, but my podiatrist is remaking them to fit my new footwear. So, but these will do as an example. This is not, sorry, this one's been on a couple of Caminos already. This one is actually made in Spain. If I can find the name of it, I'll put it down below the video. And what my physio did, I got them from my physio, and he basically heats them up, and then you stand on them and they shape to your foot, and then he's put extra little wedges and things on them to, you know, counter anything wonky I've got with my feet. These I wore on my first Camino, and they're great. So I'll discover what they're called. But you know, look at that, and I'm not having a go at La Sportiva, but they're all of the insoles that come with the shoes are pretty similar. You know, you look at this, that's just giving you a little bit of comfort. And you look at this, where you've got, you know, this support around here, and you've got some nice solid cushioning, great arch support on these actually. You know, it's just going to be so much better for your feet than that. These are called something like Vasili, but I'll check on it. You know, you don't have to spend a lot of money on custom insoles, but to my mind, it's going to make it so much more comfortable. You know, maybe you're one of the lucky ones and you can get away with just what comes with the shoes. Okay, so that's a little bit of discussion around, you know, different footwear types, pros and cons, some of the things to look at. Let's just recap on that briefly, and then I'll tell you which ones I'm going with. So think about, you know, do you want shoe, boot, trail runner, a lightweight trail runner, sandals? Think about sizing. Will you go a size bigger, width fitting? Do you want Gore-Tex or not? Heel drop, do you want zero drops? Do you want something with a bit of a heel? Note, actually, someone was asking online the other day about, I might make a separate video on this, but different lacing techniques, heel locks. Most shoes now have an extra little eyelet at the back, and it's so that you can lace your shoes like this to pull your foot down and lock the heel into place better. But I digress, as always. So there we go. Different types of footwear, some things to consider when you go to the store. Which ones did I pick? Okay. The boots were out, although I love them. They're just too heavy now. The La Sportivas were out because they're just too narrow and they weren't comfortable after quite a while. The Ultra Lone Peaks were out, whilst everybody loves them, and I find them really comfortable. There is just not enough cushioning for me. Okay, they don't work for me, and it was just exacerbating my plantar fasciitis. So the ones I'm going with are the Hokas. These are Hoka Stinsons ATR. I think they're ATR 6. I've actually got 3 pairs of these. I'm using one pair for my training walks. Then I will take a new pair with me on the Camino. I'll wear it maybe for a week or two training just to make sure they fit okay, because I'm not sure I'm going to get 1,000 Ks out of these. So my next Camino is about 1,000 Ks. And you know, I'll put on a fair few Ks just in training, so I want to take some that have got a maximum life with them. And I do have another pair which are half a size smaller, because I was curious to just test the sizing. I was getting a slight lift of the heel in these, but after a few training hikes in the smaller ones, I'm finding the smaller ones are not going to be big enough for me. They're not going to allow enough room for my swollen feet after a week or two. So I'll be going with these, and I'll just have to be really careful with the lacing and do the heel lock technique and so on. And I'm getting new orthotics put into them. So we shall see how I go with the Hoka Stinsons. Hokas are very popular. There's all different models. There's a lot of people wear Speed Goats. I've tried them. They're very like the Lone Peaks. I've tried so many I forget, but I think they were quite like the Lone Peaks in that they're quite a lightweight shoe. There's the Challenger, which is a little bit between these two. I think it's a little bit lighter. So, you know, don't go along and think, oh, everybody likes Ultras. You know, I'll get the Lone Peak. There's all different styles within the Ultras, and likewise there's all different styles within the Hokas. And then, of course, there's Keens and Merrells and lots of other brands that people love. So there we go. I've rattled on long enough. This video was really just to talk about the fact that there are some things you need to think about before you go shopping for the footwear. What type of footwear you're going to want, heel drops, sizing, all the rest of it, and some of the considerations and some of the sort of decision points that I went through to end up with these, and I'll let you know how they go. But so far, so good. If you have any particular tips to add down below on footwear, please do. Anybody walk in sandals? What kind of sandals do you walk in? I wish I could walk in them. I'm sure they must be great, but they kind of just don't work for me, unfortunately. So let me leave that as a last thought. Whatever people recommend about footwear, whatever you hear about footwear, it is a very, very personal choice. So just because I'm walking in these doesn't mean they're going to work for you. Loads of people love these. They didn't work for me. So by all means, you know, read about it, watch videos, things like that. But when you try on the shoes, what feels right for you is going to be what works for you. All I was doing is sharing a few things to think about, which will help you through that selection. So thank you for watching. Again, I rabbited on a bit. My apologies for that, but I'll see you next time. Hey, if you're not subscribed, why not subscribe? So that way, firstly, you know when a new video is coming out, and secondly, I know if you're enjoying the videos or not. If I see people subscribing on particular videos, I know that topic's of more interest. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.